Hello, everybody, and welcome to our 8th annual Kinship Care Month celebration. We've got people joining us, so I'm going to give everyone a couple of minutes and then we will kick off and we will start our event. As folks are joining, just a couple of business items. Your microphone and your video have been turned off as a participant. I'm going to ask all of my panelists to mute themselves until it's their turn to speak. You are absolutely able to send out information in the chat or to speak via chat. And we really appreciate everyone joining us virtually for this event today. If you have any tech issues that you're experiencing, please feel free to let us know in the chat or email us at navigator@nysnavigator.org and we will get our tech person right on it. So I'm going to give everyone just a couple of minutes to join and then we're going to kick off our program for the day. All right, it looks like we've got enough folks that have joined us so far. We have over 100 registered participations this morning. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us. We appreciate it. While it's not what we would have preferred for everyone to grab their cup of coffee and join us virtually, here we are. We are so excited to celebrate Kinship Care Month today at our 8th annual Kinship Care Month celebration. So our agenda for today, I'm going to give a couple of opening remarks, talk a little bit about Kinship Care and Kinship Care Month, and then I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Sheila Poole to discuss Kinship Care Month and our Families First initiative. We'll then move on to everybody's favorite portion of the program, the CURA Awards, that will be presented by Deb Fox, the co-chair of the New York State KinCare Coalition, and then we're going to wrap it up with some closing remarks. Again, this webinar will be recorded, so you're able to view it after we're done or share it with folks that weren't able to attend. It will be on our website and on our YouTube page. Everybody is muted. Feel free to drop any comments in the chat. And if you're experiencing any tech difficulties, let us know via chat or you can directly reach out to the Navigator email and we'll get you set up. So our presenters today are myself, which I will introduce myself at some point in time. I'm Rae Glaser, the director of the New York State Kinship Navigator, and then Deb Fox from Family Enrichment Network from Broome and Tioga County. She is the co-chair of the KinCare Coalition, and then Commissioner Sheila Poole from the Office of Children and Family Services. Of course, in addition to our nominees and awardees for the CURA Awards. So again, I am Rae Glaser. I'm the director of the New York State Kinship Navigator. The New York State Kinship Navigator program has been in existence since 2006. We are the information, referral, and education program all across New York State. I'd like to kick off the program today by recognizing the Kinship Navigator team. Our team is fantastic. I could not do the work that we do without them. We are a small but mighty team from across the state. I am the director. I've been with the Kinship Navigator program since 2007 when it first started from Rochester, New York. I started out as our first kinship specialist under the direction of the founding director, Jerry Wallace, who retired in 2020. And have since stepped in to fill some very big shoes as the director of the New York State Kinship Navigator team. My intake coordinator, Anthony Williams, also resides in Rochester. Anthony's been with the program since 2018. He worked for Catholic Family Center's finance team and then moved to the Navigator team and is what we like to call the voice of the Kinship Navigator. He is the person that mans our helpline most of the time, taking intakes from caregivers and professionals and those looking to become caregivers across the state. We couldn't do it without Anthony. He is a wealth of knowledge in everything kinship related. He's got a professional yet empathy-based voice on the helpline. He goes above and beyond to assist our kinship caregivers to make sure that they are receiving the services that they're entitled to and that they have the knowledge to navigate a minefield of everything kinship across New York State. Anthony is also my point person for administrative tasks, and he's got a really fine attention to detail and is just an absolutely all-around fantastic person. As many of you on the call know, when you reach out to the navigator, you're probably going to speak with Anthony, and he is just so attuned to all professionals and kinship caregivers like across the state. My senior regional coordinator, Heather Radzikowski, she is in Buffalo, New York. She has been with the team since 2019, and she comes to us from Gateway Longview, one of the local kinship programs that was in existence back at the time. Heather is absolutely dynamic. She is a former kinship caregiver herself, so she not only has the knowledge and wherewithal to direct kinship caregivers where they need to go, but she's also walked in their shoes. And you can absolutely tell when you speak with Heather, she is warm, engaging, so caring, and absolutely puts her whole heart and soul into everything that she does. Heather has been my right-hand person when it comes to running the helpline. Could not do it without her. She is the point person when I need questions answered, and always answers with a smile and gets it done right away. You know, it's fine for me to show up and show my face as the director of the program, but you can't do it without a strong backup team. So I really give my thanks to Heather for being my point person when it comes to these things. Our Capital District Regional Coordinator, Kari Correa, she is in Albany, New York. Kari joined our team in 2018 as part of our federal project providing virtual case management, which she is so well suited to do. She worked for Community Maternity Services in Albany, the local kinship program that served clients back at that time for 5 years, and has an ample background in human services. Kari is the person that absolutely every caregiver that comes into contact with her adores. She has a passion for kinship care. She's a fierce advocate for our caregivers. She has such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to everything kinship care related, and she's very boots on the ground getting it done. Whenever I talk to our evaluators, whenever I talk to our funder, whenever I talk to any caregiver, they have such amazing things to say for Kari. When we look at our reports and our satisfaction, she has over 99% satisfaction from anyone that comes into contact with her. Kari cares, and she is such a valuable team member. We couldn't do it without her, and she is synonymous with the voice of virtual kinship management, and really a boon to what it should absolutely look like. So thank you, Kari. John Klimek, my newest addition to the team. He is our regional coordinator. John joined us in winter of 2022. He came on board. He came on board to a lot of staff changes that we are navigating, and he has just been such a fundamental teammate. He jumps in whenever you need to. I think I've changed his job description 3 times. He is currently the virtual case manager for the federal kinship project, working alongside Kari. He also works on our helpline, assisting to provide coverage. And when Anthony is not available to be on the helpline, he's just stepped right in, and he's done anything you've asked him to. He is my tech person on this call today, so if anything goes wrong, he's ready to hop right in. He has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to working with mental health, chemical dependency, developmental disabilities, and has just stepped right in, been a quiet and mighty presence to the team, helping out whenever we need anyone to help us out, and really just stepped right in and been there when we need them. So thank you, John, and thank you for being my tech support today. Sincerely hope that I don't need you for this one as we go forward. So really a very dynamic team. I'm so proud to have them with us. We span the state, and everybody is just absolutely an integral member of working with kinship care. So as we celebrate kinship care, we're going to talk a lot about what that looks like in New York State, our caregivers, the much needed celebration of all the tireless work that they do. But I'm remiss in not mentioning my team first as really the voice across New York State. So everybody knows what kinship care is on this call, but just to give you some numbers and some information on what kinship care looks like, there's over 130,000 kinship caregivers in New York State. That is a low number because some kids are in kinship care for a couple of months, some of them are in kinship care for years. As we know, most of our kinship caregivers are grandparents. Our average age is 65. And we are working with caregivers that have limited amounts of resource and limited access to information, where all of our programs come into play. So there's over 200,000 kids in kinship care at any time. You can take a look at the statistics when it comes to ethnicity and age. Very few of them are informal kinship care. We're mostly dealing with informal families, which are families that are not involved with the child protective system or given the option to become kinship foster parents. So our role here really is to work with kinship caregivers, make sure that they have the best knowledge at their disposal to provide the best outcomes in terms of permanency and stability for these kids in kinship care. And while sometimes we're dealing with limited amounts of resources and limited amounts of information, these caregivers are doing such a fantastic job. Their passion, their commitment to kinship kids is just unparalleled, and that's why we come together to celebrate them. Part of that celebration is the folks that have stepped in to work and make their life commitment is kinship care. In New York, we are very lucky to have a robust kinship system of care. So you have the Kinship Navigator, which I've already discussed. We are statewide. We provide information, referral, and education all across New York State, all 62 counties. You've got Anthony on our helpline, being the voice of kinship care. 10 to 4, Monday through Friday, we're going to provide that information and referral to caregivers. You've got Kari and Heather and John as our virtual case managers covering 21 counties across the state that do not have an on-site virtual case or an on-site kinship care program. You have our 14 local kinship programs. Those are the programs that are funded by the Office of Children and Family Services to provide on-site support to kinship caregivers in 25 counties across New York State. You're going to hear from some of those kinship programs today as they honor their kinship caregivers with CURA Awards. They are integral to our kinship community because they are able to assist caregivers that come into their caseload in terms of helping them get legal permanency over children, in terms of helping them apply for financial assistance, and in terms of providing on-site support for those caregivers as they navigate the system and learn how to become parents either again or for the first time to kids that have stepped into their care. The Permanency Resource Centers. We're also going to hear from one of those Permanency Resource Centers today as they honor one of their outstanding program people as the Outstanding Professional of the Year. Those are 15 programs serving all 62 counties in New York State. They serve post-guardianship and post-adoptive families, and they operate really as the local kinship programs do. They just funded a different source of kinship caregivers that come through their line. So they offer the same sorts of supports in navigating the legal system, the financial system, and providing on-site support to those caregivers. We also have kinship programs that are funded by other sources across the state. Some of them are very small programs that run support groups off of $500 a year, small but mighty. We have quite a few kinship programs that are funded by the Office of the Aging. We're going to hear from one of those programs today, the Grandparent Resource Center, and they provide kinship services with funding as it comes along to bridge those gaps between the local kinship programs, the Kinship Navigator, to make sure that we are able to support those 130,000 kinship caregivers across the state. Altogether, we work as the kinship system of care in New York State. Everybody talks to everybody else. Everybody works together. We do cross referrals. And our main goal is really to make sure that we can equip those kinship families with all the tools and resources that they need to provide the best care for kinship kids. The KinCare Coalition is another arm of Kinship Care in New York State. That is our statewide coalition. It's comprised of kinship caregivers, service providers, and other stakeholders who are committed to advancing the cause of kinship care in New York. I am the chair of the KinCare Coalition, and my co-chair, Deb Fox, will be speaking a little bit later today in our program to award those CURA awardees to all of our deserving recipients. And the KinCare Coalition really is the voice of kinship issues across the state. We invite anybody to join our coalition. We do meet monthly on the third Tuesday of every month from 1 to 2 p.m. At this stage, we are focusing more on program deliverables for our kinship programs to make sure that we have best practices in place and to encourage growth for the KinCare Coalition. And then our main area in the KinCare Coalition is to provide education. So when it comes to legislative season, the KinCare Coalition is the primary force to ensure that we have funding that's consistent and enough to do the work that we need to do the work across the state, and to advance kinship policy in terms of the agenda for things that are much needed for kinship caregivers and kinship professionals across the state. In the past, we've had much success declaring Kinship Care Month in September and advancing bills when it comes to recognizing kinship caregivers. We continuously work to make sure that caregivers have a voice in the system, that they are able to secure legal representation, that they are able to get fair access to financial supports. And you can take a look at our 2022 and our past legislative agendas right on our website at thekincarecoalition.org. We absolutely welcome new members, anybody that's got a voice or an interest in kinship care, kinship caregivers, local kinship programs, and anybody else that's got a vested interest in kinship care. If you'd like to join our coalition, you can sign up to receive our newsletter on our website or email us directly and we'll add you right to that list. Our next meeting is October 16th at 1 p.m. and we would love to have folks join us as we start to prep our 2023 legislative agenda. Oh, I got a correction from Linda. Linda, thank you so much. There are 16 permanency resource centers across the state, not 15. So I need to update my PowerPoint. My sincere apologies to the permanency resource center that I forgot. Thankfully, nobody will know which one that was. So apologies. The last portion of my agenda is to talk a little bit about Kinship Care Month in New York State, which is why we are all here today. So Kinship Care Month in New York State has some deep-seated roots, and I would be remiss in not recognizing Jerry Wallace, our founding director of the KinCare Coalition and the Kinship Navigator, for his efforts in bringing Kinship Care Month to be recognized in New York State, and also in ensuring that we carry that tradition on yearly and engaging policymakers both statewide and nationally to recognize Kinship Care Month. So in New York State, January 2014 is really our red letter date here. And that's when we started to meet with legislative leadership to encourage them to officially recognize Kinship Care Month. We first were able to recognize it in August of 2014 with some much needed assistance from the Office of Children and Family Services team, notably our Commissioner Sheila Poole, and with senior representatives from the governor's office. And in September of 2014, Governor Cuomo declared September as Kinship Care Month. We have been incredibly lucky every year since to have our acting governor recognize September as Kinship Care Month. My next slide, I will show you our 2022 proclamation from Governor Hochul that recognizes our Kinship Care Month as September of 2022. The Kinship Navigator, along with the KinCare Coalition, has hosted yearly luncheons in Albany since 2015. We've had a number of successful Kinship Care Month events in person where we are able to recognize our kinship caregivers, our kinship organizations, our kinship professionals, and our champions with the tireless work that they have done to support kinship families and kinship children. Our last in-person event was in 2019, where we had over 180 people attend. And since then, 2020 and 2021, and now this year, we are virtual, which in some manner is fantastic because we are able to have many more people join us to celebrate Kinship Care Month. We do cross our fingers that next year will be in person, because there's just something so special about coming together to recognize all of the hard work that we've done, and recognize our caregivers, recognize the kinship programs, the professionals that have committed so much time and effort into making kinship care such a success in New York State. This year, we are joined today by the kinship programs, by Commissioner Poole, by staff from OCFS to help us celebrate Kinship Care Month. We have done a lot of celebrating virtually this year. A lot of our local kinship programs are hosting events. That is on the Navigator website on our Google Calendar. You can take a look and see what we're doing across the state. I know we have an upcoming event in Binghamton, one in Westchester County, where our local kinship programs are celebrating caregivers, both virtually and in person. So that's really the theme of our event today, is celebrating all of the work that these kinship caregivers primarily are doing to step up, care for kids when they're given little to no notice, and provide such a wonderful environment for these kids coming into kinship care that have been faced with a lot of trauma, a lot of hardships, and really ensure that they're thriving under the care of these caregivers. And all the work that the local kinship programs have done to support these caregivers is really commendable. So we continue to celebrate Kinship Care Month through the rest of September. Today is our big event, but continue to follow us on social media, on our website, to see what's happening across the state in terms of kinship care. So here is some visual for our governor's proclamation. Since 2017, the New York State governor has designated September as Kinship Care Month. Our sincere thanks from the KinCare Coalition, the Kinship Navigator, all the local kinship programs, to leadership and staff at the Office of Children and Family Services for all your dedication, for all your support to making sure that we are able to access this proclamation every single year, as well as your ongoing support to kinship care through New York State. Special thanks to Sheila Poole, our commissioner, to Lisa Gartley-Obendimo, our deputy commissioner, to Carol McCarthy, our director of the Bureau of Permanency Services, Renee Halleck. I'm also remiss in not putting in my PowerPoint, Linda Fleurismond, our contact at OCFS, who makes sure that everything is done according to manner, and takes care of a lot of the program details, and to all of the program contacts at OCFS that work with our local kinship programs in order to ensure that their contracts are done, that all the deliverables are met, to make sure that those are happening every single year. We really appreciate it. We couldn't do the work without you, and our sincere thanks in being such a fantastic partner, such a fantastic funder in our work with kinship care. So at this point in time, I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Sheila Poole to say a few words about kinship care and Families First. Commissioner Poole has been such a friend of kinship care really since I started with the program. She has worked with the Kinship Navigator and the kinship programs all across the state. She's such a friendly voice to kinship care, hosting our program and hosting the coalition back when we were able to do it in person, coming down to Albany, having quarterly meetings to discuss our concerns about kinship care, to discuss everything that we can do to make sure that our families are supported. Commissioner Poole joined OCFS back in 2007 as the Associate Commissioner and has since risen into the ranks to be such a fantastic leader. She is the 2018 recipient of one of our CURA Awards, much deserved. And we are so pleased to have her join us today as our keynote speaker for Kinship Care Month celebration. So Commissioner Poole, I'm going to turn it over to you at this time, and thank you again for joining us today and agreeing to say some words at our Kinship Care celebration.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Rae, for that very, very generous, hi, Jacqueline, celebration. I think I actually may have perfect attendance at all of these celebrations through the years, and it is one of those events that as long as I am in this seat, I will never miss. So I am so happy to be with all of you today. I'm thrilled to be here to talk about and to the generous, nurturing, selfless people who open their homes to take care of children when their parents aren't able to. As Rae said, we have a long and rich history with the kinship community. We have a deep appreciation for kinship caregivers in New York State, grandparents, aunts, uncles, family friends, loving neighbors. I wanted just to take a minute to share some data from the website grandfamilies.org to highlight the vital role that you all play in New York State. So some really interesting statistics. There are in New York State over 435,000 children living in homes where the relative is the head of household. That's almost 500,000 children. 122,000 children are being raised by kin with no parent present or involved. Just under 4,000 children in foster care are being raised by kin, and over 100,000 grandparents are responsible for their grandchildren in New York. For every one child raised by kin in foster care, there are 30 being raised by kin outside of the foster care system. We all know, right, that children who are placed with familiar loved ones like you, rather than into the foster care system with strangers, they fare much better. Research suggests that kinship care minimizes the trauma of leaving family. It improves children's well-being. It improves behavioral and mental health outcomes. It allows siblings oftentimes to stay together, and importantly, preserves children's cultural, religious, and community connections. The New York State Kinship Navigator program is, of course, you know, all know this, right? But I want to say thank you for serving and celebrating kinship navigators and caregivers since 2006. We've been working all along, as you heard Rae say, when Jerry was here, and since Rae has assumed the leadership, to educate our local departments of social services and the community at large of the support and services that these programs provide. Rae and her small group of amazing dedicated staff provide leadership for a broad-based coordinated effort to make sure that comprehensive services are available to address the needs of kinship caregivers and their family. They are a valued partner of us and me at OCFS and of our kinship programs across the state. And Rae and her team are completing their 4th year of a federal grant with the goal of establishing a Title IV-E eligible New York State kinship system of care, which will allow our state to use partial reimbursement, federal reimbursement, to expand our program here in New York. As a longstanding collaborator with the kinship program, we and the team that you heard, Rae recognized here at OCFS, Carol and everyone else, we, when issues have been brought to us by Rae and the team, because of your voices and speaking up, we've done our very best to engage other state agencies, right, who share in the responsibility for providing and coordinating care for these children. So we work with the State Department of Health, the Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance, particularly on childcare access, which I'll talk a little bit more about, partnering with the Office of Court Administration, the Office of Addiction Services and Supports, the State Education Department, and the Office for the Aging. We also bring national resources to New York State to help guide kinship work, including several foundations. Our Redlick Horowitz Foundation partners here in New York State who've been a tremendous support. And then the national Annie E. Casey and then Casey Family Programs. They value this work. They know it is critical to modernizing our child welfare system. We all understand the multiple challenges that the pandemic brought to our families and programs, but listen, you guys did an amazing job, an extraordinarily creative job finding ways to keep kinship families informed, connected, and engaged. So I wanted just to share some really awesome examples of their work. So one program hosted their first virtual pizza party where they set ingredients or had pizzas delivered to families who signed up. This idea was shared in an OCFS Kinship Caregiver conference call, and it led to other programs hosting similar events. They offered virtual baking classes, hosted a trip to the Bronx Zoo, supplied families with book bags and school supplies, delivered laptops, to help families support remote learning to those very difficult months of remote learning and kids not being in school. So as you all know, right, and we see too, these programs dug really deep to continue their mission, regardless of a raging pandemic, of connecting and supporting families. When we look nationally at what we see happening related to kinship care, the term grand family excuse me, is a new term being used to represent kinship caregiver families. According to Generations United, 2.6 million children are growing up in grand families in the United States. Yet family systems and services in areas such as housing, education, and healthcare were not often designed to support grand families. Unlike parents who have an automatic legal representation relationship with their children, grandparents and other relative caregivers do not have an inherent legal right and responsibility. It's to obtain such a relationship takes time and money, winding your way right through an often complex court system. And compounding these challenges, grand families must navigate complex, fragmented systems of support, often aimed at parents that differ within and among communities we know are underfunded nationally and often do not consider diverse cultural norms. I want to just take a few minutes sharing with you some of the initiatives and services that OCFS also offers for kinship caregivers to try and alleviate some of these challenges. So back in 2022, we released a policy some of you are familiar with. I hope it's called the Kin First Firewall Practice. And this was really sending a very important message to our local departments of social services that we insist that kinship caregivers first and foremost be outreached to, be provided support as the first resource for children in need of placements. A secondary review of placement efforts is made to achieve kinship placement, and there is a concerted effort to place youth with kin whenever possible. Concerns were expressed, though, about the lack of dedicated staff at local districts, right? They're so busy, right? They're under-resourced as well. So we heard from you. It's great, OCFS, that you issued this policy, but word is not really getting out, and we're seeing local districts struggle with implementing it. So in 2021, we established a policy that required every local department of social services and every licensed foster care program in New York to designate at least one person to attend a 2-day training and to become designated as a kinship champion. And those kinship champions across the state are charged with explaining the options available to kin and guidance for those who choose to become kinship foster parents. Those kinship advocates and champions, they advocate for helping caregivers make informed decisions, right? Navigate the complex web of services And I am so happy to say that approximately 250 local Department of Social Services staff and another 125 voluntary agency staff have completed the training. So we've got these kinship champions. I hope that those of you who are kinship caregivers who've worked with local departments of social services are really experiencing a difference in the support and helping you navigate and explaining things, right, in plain language, so you know clearly what your options are. I think it's really important to lift up some of the data, right? You heard Rae mention the Family First. So it's a federal body of legislation that was passed back in 2018. We have been working hard with over 400 stakeholders across the state to implement Family First, and it's a very complex bill. But what, first and foremost, what it says is that we are going to insist that every state in the country do whatever is possible to make sure that children are in the least restrictive setting, right? And so that all leads back to supporting, seeking kinship navigators and relatives and other caregivers who are willing to take care of these children. We have come a really long way. So our recent statistics as of June 30th of this year, statewide, are you ready? 46.6% of children in foster care are in a kinship foster home, which is an increase from just a couple of years before, when statewide only 38% of children were in a kinship foster home. So we're making fantastic progress. We want to keep moving forward. You know, we use some of our federal money to invest in transition funds to help support these kinship initiatives. But we're going to keep at it, right? We want to hear from you, which is why we have these quarterly meetings, why our team is so connected to Rae, because it doesn't work if we don't continue to find ways to support all of you. One of the issues that we've heard about for many years is how difficult it is for kinship caregivers to access childcare. Right? Grandma says, I will take, you know, my 2-year-old grandchild is as a kinship foster kid, but I'm still going to work. I need childcare. So we have made tremendous progress in New York State. I mean, you're all reading about childcare, right, in the newspapers. It is of national policy discussion. But in New York, we have been able to raise the thresholds of eligibility. We are expanding the options of childcare providers in places that we call childcare deserts, where we have not had providers. There we are putting hundreds of millions of dollars into making childcare more accessible. And now, in an unprecedented way, our local Department of Social Services, and take notes for those of you who, if you've heard from your local district that there's not money for childcare, there is. If you are having trouble navigating through the childcare system with the local Department of Social Services, please let us know. There are plenty of opportunities to support those needs. We've got work to do, right? Housing continues to be a major issue. Legal services and representation in court. Education, making sure that as caregivers, right, you can go to the school, you can sign the necessary consents, you can have access to report cards, you have someone explain to you how to navigate the special education system if the child needs it. Concrete supports, right? Many of our caregivers, especially those who are retired, living on a fixed income, you know, buying a car seat, paying for diapers, paying for groceries. Those are all stressors on all of you, and we're going to continue to do whatever we can to provide additional support to you. So as I come to a close this morning, I am honored to be here. The awards, not the keynote speeches, right, are the magical parts of these celebrations. And through my many years, I am in awe. I call you heroes, unsung heroes oftentimes, because the broader community system often doesn't really recognize just how many of you are out there caring for children that you never, right, imagine that you'd be asked to care for. So I am honored to be with all of you. Keep challenging us here at the state. Keep bringing issues to our concern. We are not shy about calling up other state agency commissioners. We have an accountability as state government to do whatever is possible to support all of you. So I'm delighted to be here, Rae, and to everyone. I actually have a lovely copy, hard copy of the governor's proclamation. So we'll be sure that it makes its way to you. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Poole. We appreciate your time as always and your dedication to this matter. You know, and as I'm listening to you speak and feeling very energized about the progress that we've made with Kinship Care in New York State, I think it's really important to note that as you discuss OCFS's piece in it and your team that works for you, that team is always right there, boots on the ground to help further whatever the need is across the state. Not only do you make your doors open to us quarterly to meet, but your team meets with the Navigator monthly to talk about what issues are going on across the state. How can OCFS step in to help? It's right there every month on our agenda that Linda and Carol send. What are the statewide issues? What are the statewide concerns? What are you seeing? Are we running into any issues with the local departments of social services? Do we need to get regional involved? What can we do to help? And it's very, very heartwarming to know that not only do we talk about the successes that we've had with Families First and the successes that we've had across the state with things like the Kinship Firewall and the numerous other ADMs that have been put out to support kinship caregivers as they navigate the system. But in very real time, we want to talk about what are we seeing that's not working and how can OCFS step in to help. Carol and Linda are fantastic at stepping in to get regional involved when something is not going well, when something's not being communicated. You always have your doors open, say, let us know if we can help out in any way. Let us know if there's an issue. Folks bring that to the Navigator, they bring that to the local kinship programs, and we're able to escalate that as needed. But it's just very heartwarming to know that in terms of what kinship care looks like, that there is a very dedicated team at OCFS and with all the kinship providers across the state that really very much care and want to know what we can do to help our caregivers be the most successful. We talk a lot about when we're presenting to kinship care to human service agencies about how there's not a lot of notice when caregivers are stepping into care for children. I often say when I'm speaking to professionals that I have 2 children myself, but I had 9 months to prepare for each one. And a lot of these caregivers are getting a phone call from CPS, or they're being asked to step up on a dime and say, can you care for these kids? And they're all doing it, but they need help. They need help knowing what financial resources are available to them. They need to make sure that they understand whether they're involved with child welfare, what legal options are available to them. And they need to know in English. They need to know in words that they can understand what's available to them. And the team at OCFS, the kinship programs, the Kinship Navigator, we all want to make sure that those caregivers have ongoing access to the supports that they need, that they understand what their options are in such a complex world. A lot of these kids come to kinship care with high ACEs scores. They have a lot of adverse childhood experiences. Kinship caregivers are not only being asked to step in and parent, but they're being asked to step in and parent and effectively manage that trauma that the kids are bringing to the household. And you know, the issues that it might cause within the family for a kinship caregiver to step in. And we all know on the call here today that those kinship care protective factors are usually, and in most of our cases, leading to more permanent and more stable outcomes for kinship care kids. And that's something that with the kinship programs, with the Navigator, with our dedicated kinship caregivers, our champions, and our funders at OCFS, we always want to make sure that we are promoting the best foot forward. We've seen that with the ongoing funding for the kinship programs. We've seen that with the kinship champions. OCFS was kind enough to allow the navigator to be part of that curriculum, to be part of the training. As it rolls out, we're really excited to have a point person at each local Department of Social Services that can assist those families. With the local Department of Social Services knowing that they can make that referral to the Kinship Navigator and to the kinship programs to be able to step in and help those caregivers understand exactly what needs to be done. And it's really that partnership and that camaraderie that exists between all of the local kinship programs and OCFS and the Navigator that makes it be the best protective factor for these kinship families. At this point in time, we're going to turn to our favorite portion of the program, which is the CURA Awards. I'm going to turn it over at this point in time to Deb Fox, who is the co-chair of the KinCare Coalition. Deb Fox runs the local kinship program in Broome and Tioga Counties, Family Enrichment Network. I'm sure she can correct me as needed because she keeps me in my place with the KinCare Coalition. But Deb has been in kinship care for almost 2 decades. She was the head of the Family Enrichment Network when I joined the Kinship Navigator back in 2007. She's always been such a staunch advocate and supporter of kinship families. And the thing that I appreciate most about Deb, aside from her outstanding knowledge when it comes to kinship care and outstanding advocacy, is she is exceptionally real. So Deb stepped in March to help me chair the KinCare Coalition without any hesitancy. Looked at what we had in place, looked at the things that we were doing very well, looked at the things that needed some work, and she said, "Miss Rae, let's get started on this." Actually, she might have called me queen at that point. I'm not really sure. She has a deference thing, and I'm not 100% sure that I would call myself a queen, but if she wants to put that crown on me, I will absolutely let her. As my friend Lady Deb would say, we've got our work cut out for us. Since she stepped in, we've had monthly KinCare Coalition meetings. She helps me lead the charge seamlessly, steps in when I stumble, steps in when I need the help, and lets me know when I'm hitting it out of the park and also when I need to step up. So with her co-leadership, we've been able to build the coalition into a very strong group of kinship professionals, kinship caregivers. We have really good attendance with the local kinship programs stepping in to learn more about best practices, to offer what they're doing well in their programs, to ask for help when they're struggling, and really building a fantastic base of kinship professionals, those with a vested interest in kinship care, and kinship caregivers, to make sure that we have our 2023 legislative season be the strongest one yet. So Deb, hats off. I can't say enough words to how amazing of a colleague and a friend that you've been through the past 6 months, and actually for the past 15 years since I stepped in as a very green kinship care advocate. I'm going to turn it over to Deb to lead us in our 2022 presentation of the CURA Awards. Over to you, Deb.
Well, thank you for that, Rae. I feel like I just received an award. So I'm just waiting for my flowers to get delivered now. So that was an amazing introduction. I think my work is done. Goodbye. But let me lead on to our CURA Awards. And I do want to thank Commissioner Pearl too, because I loved everything she said. And I knew Rae would be much better at thanking her than I am. Rae's a lot more gracious. I might be real, but Rae is gracious. So we need both. The CURA Awards are awards that were developed back in 2015 by the New York State KinCare Coalition. And we started them to recognize the many different roles that people have taken across the state to support kinship care. Cura is the Latin word meaning to care. And I think having awards like the CURA Awards are an important vehicle for recognizing kinship care as a legitimate movement. Way back in the day, I've been involved in kinship care for 17 years. And at that point, that's when OCFS started to recognize kinship care as something that was happening out there in the wild. before that, kinship care wasn't even recognized at the state level as a formal alternative for children. Kinship care was just something that families did, and it wasn't really worthy of note or official support. We've come a very long way since then, as attested by all the information the Commissioner Poole has shared with us. I think that the CURA Awards put an official face, and anything that's important seems to have an award in life. So I think it's great that we've started recognizing the amazing efforts that people have put in on every level across the state to support and further the needs of kinship care. So our CURA Awards will be celebrating kinship caregivers, kinship professionals, kinship agencies, and a kinship champion. And all these people in their own way have made a significant contribution to kinship care in New York State. You can read the slide. I'm not going to read it out to you. You can see how these selections were made. And I urge everyone who's on our webinar today, next year, we all know people who are doing an amazing job, and everyone deserves recognition. So please think about nominating the people you work with, the kinship caregivers you work with, someone in your agency who's doing a standout job. Please, take this as a vehicle to recognize the efforts that are going out there. So what we're going to do with our awards today is I will announce who the awardee is, and then the person who nominated them is going to talk briefly about why they nominated that person. And then the awardee will have a chance to accept the award, and obviously, we're not physically giving them anything like we would in person, but they'll have a chance to put a few words down as well, so we can all hear from them. So we're going to go to our first award for the day, and that's going to be our outstanding professional. The professional is Amy Dreyer, and she's the Associate Executive Director of Programs of the Adoptive and Foster Family Coalition of New York. I'd hate to have to say that every day if I was answering the phone. That's a mouthful. And Amy was nominated by Pat O'Brien from that same agency. And I think, Pat, you should be on the panel. And if Pat is willing to unmute himself, he can tell us. Pat can tell us in his own words why he nominated Amy for Outstanding Professional. So I'm going to pass the baton to you, Pat, okay?
Yes. Can you hear me or see me?
Yeah, I can't. Well, let me see. I can hear you. Yep, and I can see you.
You're good to go, Pat.
I'm good to go, Ray?
You're good to go.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Pat O'Brien, the Executive Director of the Adoptive and Foster Family Coalition of New York. I'm here to nominate Amy Dreyer, who's our Associate Executive Director of Programs, who oversees all of the coalition's programs, including our services to kinship care families, to kinship caregivers. When people call the coalition's 24-hour helpline with a kinship question, these calls always get diverted to Amy. Amy has an extraordinary amount of knowledge about how to help kinship caregivers, and our entire staff knows she is the go-to person for any question in regard to kin. Many kinship families who contact the coalition have issues and problems resolved as a result of working with Amy. She leads families to the right places, always gives them the correct information that they need, and she often follows up with them to see if they need any additional help. And sometimes she even provides them with some short-term case management. Now imagine that. Some folks get case management from an associate executive director of an organization. And Amy always responds to families in the most kind and compassionate manner. Now, in addition to serving families directly, Amy also represents the coalition on all matters related to kinship policy and advocacy, serving in both national and statewide CHAMPS networks. She even presented a New York State Kinship Navigator Lunch and Learn in the not too distant past. Well, the coalition is most honored to present this year's CURA Outstanding Professional of 2022 to Amy Dreyer, and we invite Amy to say a few words.
Thank you so much. Just getting my computer oriented. I am honored to be chosen. I was honored that I was nominated, and I'm honored to be chosen to receive the 2020 Outstanding Professional Award from Kinship Navigator. Foundation of how I got here in my career has everything to do with kinship. Although the word kinship wasn't on my radar for most of my life, kinship was something that happened in our family. Both of my grandmothers were raised in kinship homes, and my cousin lived with us as a teenager, and it just was. There was no big plan. It just happened. We were always close, so it didn't seem out of the norm that he would be living with us. But when I look back with the lens that I have today, it was probably the most difficult challenges for a teenage boy whose world was turned upside down. And I believe that as we go through life, knowledge and connection with others makes a difference. Kinship families face challenges that are unique and driven by many things, including emotion, love, anger, obligation, and necessity. Our vision at the Adoptive and Foster Family Coalition is that no foster adoptive or kinship family in New York State will feel alone or unsupported, and that all families have the tools so they can support and nurture the children and be role models for others. The sense of community and connection is so important for us. The coalition believes by fostering communication and collaboration between families and agencies, like the Kinship Navigator, we ensure stability, well-being, and permanency for all children. In my role, if I cannot help someone find a solution, like Pat said, I will make it my mission to find a resource that can. I'm passionate about educating families regarding their rights, because everyone should have the tools and also the courage to advocate for themselves within a system that can be overwhelming at times. The coalition and organizations like Kinship Navigator help fill a gap by providing caregivers with information, support, and advocacy, empowering families so they can provide for the children placed in their homes. These services were not available for my family members, and I can only imagine how even a little bit of support could have lifted them up and lifted us up. So keeping things short and sweet, thank you again for this honor and for supporting Kinship Navigator as well as the Adoptive and Foster Family Coalition of New York.
Thanks,
Thank-
Amy.
Thank you, Amy. That was inspiring to listen to, and I think you really hit the nail on the head. The passion is where it's all about. And so many of the people that work in kinship care, nobody works in kinship care to get rich. I know that much. The passion is so important. And I did want to add that even though we're not physically giving you an award today, you will be getting one in the mail. So, and for every other, not just Amy, every other awardee will be getting their awards sent to them in the mail. So check your mailboxes.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Deb. I just want to hop in quick to throw in my 2 cents about Amy. Apparently, I have to speak a lot during this celebration, but I really want to recognize the fact that Amy is one of the most selfless and humble people that I know. And, you know, she's not only right there helping these caregivers, boots on the ground every single day. She takes quarterly calls with the Navigator. So that the regional permanency centers, the local kinship programs, the navigators can work all well together. And it's a funny aside that Pat had put up the nomination for Amy that was so well deserved. And Amy is such a selfless person that she received the award recognition and looked at it and said, "Oh, this is great. Where's the link to the winners?" And Pat looked at her and said, "You know, you should read this all the way through because you won the award." And it was just such in her mind that she was ready to go recognize the people that had won this award for professional, for champion, for agency, that it never occurred to her for a minute that the award would be going to her. And we had a good laugh about that yesterday as we were practicing for today's program.
It's a true story.
But you know, kudos, Amy, much deserved. So lucky to have you as one of our staunch supporters and our outstanding kinship professional for 2022.
Thank you, Rae.
Very humble as well. So back to you, Lady Deb.
All right, thank you, Queen Rae. Now we're going to move to our outstanding agency. And this time, our outstanding agency is the Grandparent Resource Center of New York City. Accepting the award will be Helen Flowers. However, the award is going to be presented by Rae. And so I'm going to quickly give the baton back to you again, Rae.
Thank you so much, Deb. I apologize. Everybody's going to hear my voice more than they wanted to this morning. Our nominator was unable to be here to present the award, so I have the honor to present our Outstanding Kinship Program CURA Award 2022 to the Grandparent Resource Center. The Grandparent Resource Center, if you're not familiar, provides supportive caregiver services to kin in New York City. They've been around forever. They are one of the integral programs that has not only provided supportive services all across the 5 boroughs, to grandparents, to professionals in terms of sensitivity training, different opportunities to caregivers and the children that they're caring for. They also are a leader for the Empowerment Series program, so they have grandparent empowerment. They have been such a wonderful ally to the Kinship Navigator. They've been such a wonderful component to speak with us about what's going on down in New York City, as we sometimes get caught up in the rest of the state. And the staff that they have working for them is just top notch. The director, Helen Flowers, will be accepting the award today. And Helen, unfortunately, will be retiring this year. Well, fortunately for you, Helen, you will be sorely missed. And I have to say personally, Brandy Orange is one of the integral staff members for the Grandparent Resource Center. And Brandy is such a fierce advocate for all the caregivers that she works with, for the system of care down in New York City. And one of the things that I appreciate most about Brandy and about Helen and the whole organization is they don't hesitate to get me on the phone and say, all right, Rae, here's what's not working in New York City, or here's what's working, and have you considered this for the rest of the state? So they've been around. They provide excellent services to caregivers. They were one of the first organizations to pivot to make things virtual when it came to COVID-19, which was especially hit hard down in New York City. They have virtual peer support groups. They have outreach in a very rough area to promote outreach for. And they really just hit it out of the ballpark in every single area, whether it's working with caregivers, whether it's working with professionals in New York City, or if it's bringing the Navigator and the rest of the state into the same fold where New York City is having success or where they're struggling, to make sure that we are providing excellent service across the state to caregivers that is much needed. So I could go on and on about the Grandparent Resource Center, but I'm going to turn it over to Helen Flowers, the director, to say a few words. And congratulations, muchly deserved, our CURA Award, the Outstanding Kinship Program of 2022, the Grandparent Resource Center.
Wow, Rae, you're gonna make me cry. I'm getting ready to go into tears in my office right now. You've said it all. And then that still is like a small portion of the wonderful work of this Grandparent Resource Center team. We are honored to accept this award. And I will say that the team has pivoted and grown by leaps and bounds in terms of the work that they've done in at-risk communities, right? NYCHA developments, and every surrounding community in our New York City boroughs. I want to say that because of their fierce work, their fierce advocate, their on the ground, boots on the ground, passion and desire, and the ability to really impact these communities, we are now in a position that we're going to be expanding from 15 NYCHA developments to 33. Wow. And in addition to that, we have allowed and we've been given grants as a result of the work that they've done in the community. This year, we were the recipients of the AARP Challenge Award. In addition, we received the Brookdale Foundation Award, and we are so excited to be able to replicate a lot of the work that we've done in these communities during a difficult and challenging time where there was such need for our kinship caregivers, seniors, our youth, and extended families within these communities. I salute every one of my team members for their fortitude going into these communities that are 20% crime ridden in terms of gun violence, public safety, drugs, you name it, they faced it. And they've gone in there to provide supportive services. They've gone in there to really be an advocate and provide services that when we're moved or when we're somewhere else, that they'll be sustainable. I want to say to this team, you are the bar. There is no one else but the GRC that is the bar for me. I have been really appreciative to be leading for the number of years that I have this amazing team. I want to say, Brandy Orange, you hit it on the nail, Rae. Ask the expert, kinship caregiver, that's her. Antoinette Emmers, on the ground boots, influential, vast network of community partnerships and really making impacts. Frank McCrae, who's out there in the trenches, doing great things in terms of virtual, online summits, things that's really going to move the dial in their various communities. Wendy Parada, who is in the Bronx, and she does lovely advocate in terms of case assistance and providing much necessary services to those in need. Definitely Grant Cruz, who is in Manhattan and does a vast amount of work in Brooklyn. And you'll hear a little bit more about that. That's Jackie Hearns that he nominated for the Outstanding Caregiver Award. And Rosemary Sipo, who has been our administrative function that really makes sure that our empowerment series goes out, that the materials and everything's are prepared, that everybody is aware of what's happening. And certainly to our additional community service aides, Marilyn Kelly and Sammy Ebanks. They are second to none. When I tell you this team is deserving, that their desire and their passion and their goal to continue to impact the lives of kinship caregivers and our seniors are beyond. They go above and beyond. We have thankfully during the pandemic been able to go from in-person to a hybrid, right? And one of the things we believe in is making sure that we bridge that digital divide. As a result, we've been really able to increase the number of people that's joining our virtual programming, training, empowerment series, all things kinship care. And what I love about what we do is that we're always seeking new communities, building capacity in these areas that are underserved, that are marginalized, and also making sure that whatever services that we're providing, we know the heartbeat of that community and are able to deliver them. The deliverables of this team have been beyond. The number of people that we've been able to serve, during the pandemic has increased over 60%. I want to say that the data that we've been able to extract has shown the value and the intensity and the intentionality and the superbness of this team. So thank you, because I could go on and on. Everybody knows me. Because I am passionate about what we do and the team does that. I want to say that, yes, this is going to be my the end of this month, I will be retiring, but I am so confident that this team will move the dial forward, that they will continue to rise as a phoenix and keep making imprints and impact in the lives of our kinship caregivers and the community and professionals. I want to say, please, if you have not heard of our trainings and things of that nature, please chime in, find out, seek us out. We've been able to do great kinship campaigns within all the 5 boroughs, digital things in terms of Staten Island. And we want to get the word out because we want to continue to make an impact, change lives, and move the dial forward. Bring awareness to kinship programs, bring awareness to the resources that are needed in order to sustain them, to improve the quality of their lives forever. And you'll hear a little bit more in terms of how we have impacted some of our kinship caregivers when you speak to Ms. Hearns. But thank you so much again for New York State Kinship Navigator, the coalition. Rae, you are second to none. We appreciate it, and we look forward to continued collaborations to move the dial forward in the city of New York and in the upstate area. Thank you very much.
Wow, Helen, I'm exhausted. I mean, that's amazing, everything that you guys are doing down there at that center, and you've certainly given me some ideas, and I'm going to be reaching out to find out more about your grandparent empowerment trainings. With people like you involved, we can only succeed. So obviously your agency is very well deserving of this reward or award. And thank you again for your passion as well. Now we're going to go to our Outstanding Caregivers awards. And I'm really happy that we've got 3 different caregivers, or 4, I should say, caregivers from 3 different areas of the state being represented. And I think it's so important that we get our upstate representation. I know New York City is big in numbers and small in size, and upstate is large in size and small in numbers. So I'm glad to see we've got some representation from upstate New York. And our first awardee is going to be Mr. William Jeffers, and he's from Rochester, New York. And he has been nominated by Tracy Garrison of the Hillside Kinship Caregivers program. And I'm going to let Tracy come on board and tell us why she nominated William. Tracy, the floor is yours.
So, can you hear me?
Yes, sure can.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here today. And I am here, yes, with William. And how do I start? How do I find the right words to present my nominee? Over his lifetime, William Jeffers has demonstrated dedication to his family, the children he cares for, and his community as an outstanding citizen. William has devoted his life to selfless voluntary services and has been a role model to those in his family, church, and community. As a fairly young adult, William became a foster parent, caring for African-American boys in need of a father figure. Not only did William become a foster parent, he helped others in this role as a foster care mentor. Additionally, at a time in his life when William should have been enjoying retirement and fishing in Florida, he was instead singing lullabies, eating bottles at 3 a.m. for his 2-month-old granddaughter, Brianna. William stepped up yet again, putting himself aside when his granddaughter needed a responsible parent to love and care for her. William obtained full custody of his granddaughter, Brianna, at the age of just 2 months and has loved and cared for her since. She is now 19. In all my years working in human services, I have never witnessed, I have never witnessed such steadfast commitment and unconditional love as William has shown for his granddaughter. Due to his amazing care and support, Brianna has become an intelligent, articulate young woman. Additionally, William is very engaged in the client Hillside Kinship Caregiver Program and routinely attends family activities and caregiver support groups. William has become a role model to other caregivers in our program and represents all of the very most important qualities of being a successful and dedicated grandfather and caregiver. And for all those reasons and many more, I am so proud to nominate William Jeffers for the 2022 CURA Award. Thank you, William. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. That was obviously very heartfelt. And William, are you going to take the opportunity to talk to us now?
I want to say thank you first to Tracy. I'm so honored to be receiving this award. And I want to say is thank you.
Okay, thank you, William. I like that. Short, sweet, and to the point. And thank you, Helen, excuse me, thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
You really gave us a splendid idea of what a fine, upstanding man Mr. Jeffers is, and the huge impact he's had on people's lives. And the world needs more people like Mr. Jeffers. So thank you very much, and congratulations, William, on your award.
Okay.
Our second Kinship Caregiver Award is going to Jacqueline Hearn from New York City. And she was nominated by Grant Cruz of the Grandparent Resource Center. I believe the grant is unavailable today to be online with us. And so Helen Flowers from the Grandparent Resource Center will talk to why Jacqueline was nominated and give us some information about Helen. Excuse me, give us some information about Jacqueline. So Helen, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's definitely indeed a pleasure again to, be able to really give this award to Jacqueline Hearn. Grant Cruz, yes, is really the community advocate who nominated her. He is away, in DR on vacation, but he wanted to be here, but he wanted to make sure, right, that she was nominated and appreciated because of her amazing ability to care for her grandchildren at a time when it was a difficult, thing. She has, Ms. Hearn, after 24 years, being a corrections officer at the Department of Corrections, she went into retirement and lo and behold, became a caregiver of her granddaughter. And then she came up to New York City. Not too long after that, she became the caregiver of her grandson. She has been a staple in the community. She has done, I've seen her at different events, just really supportive of her grandchildren and really doing her best to provide a wealthy education for them. If you look at her bio, you look at a little information on her, you notice that one of her grandchildren, which is her son, Caden, has become a poet. And he has not just become a poet, but because of his fierceness, because of the nurturing, because of the love and that Ms. Hearns has provided, he has been able to excel as a poet, and he has been able to, and I'm gonna let her share that because I told her I wanted her to do that on so many levels, what he has been doing in terms of going around to community events, working in city council venues, doing his poem and sharing. Last year's March in Washington, and he was at the Showtime in Apollo not too long ago. And so we know that he's doing great things, and all of these things, the granddaughter's in college, it is a testament to Miss Jacqueline Hearns. Jacqueline Hearns, we're excited that you have been nominated this award, and we look forward to hearing from you at this time.
Thank you very much. I was very surprised and very honored to get that award. I have 2 grandkids. I have a granddaughter that at age of 2 months, I've raised her from 2 months. Now she's 19 years old, second year in college. And I'm so happy for that. My grandson, he's 9, he'll be 9 in November. He's a poet, like she said. He's been to Washington, D.C., saying his poem at the Power Theater. He also gotten the proclamation from the senator, youth icon proclamation the senator gave him. He's going back to Apollo again next week, matter of fact. He's it's so much. I mean, I just love my grandkids and I do the best I can for them. That's all I can say. I mean, I just do what I have to do because that's part of me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline. It sounds like you're doing more than you have to do. I've worked with plenty of families where they do the bare minimum, and clearly you are doing an amazing job. And anytime you can get a child into college, it's a tip of the hat, because that's not an easy feat anymore. And to have a poet in the family is also, that's a wonderful addition. It's a wonderful gift to the world as well. So thank you, Jacqueline, for all your efforts. Now we're going to move on to our final award, which is for 2 people, Donald and Wendy Moran from Herman in St. Lawrence County. So they are at the far north of our state, out in way out there. So I'm going to let Amy Charlo from Fostering Futures, the Kinship Care Program in St. Lawrence County. Avery is the person who nominated Donald and Wendy, and she's going to come on board and she's going to tell us why she made this nomination. So the floor is yours, Avery.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm Avery Charlo, and I've had the honor to be able to work with Wendy and Donald over the last year of care. I've really struggled kind of to put this all into words just because they're the just amazing people to work with. So here's some background and why I nominated Donald and Wendy. So Donald and Wendy Morin made a selfless act a little over a year ago. These two individuals did not skip a beat in taking in their 3 grandchildren when most needed. Donald and Wendy aren't getting any younger, as Don would say, and without a thought, they took on a 10, 9, and 6-year-old. Wendy and Don had little to no contact with the family due to family disagreements. When they took the children in, they had little understanding of what they were getting into. They just needed to keep their grandchildren safe, and that's what they knew. Now they have taken every step with encouragement, disagreement, and advocating to lead them to where they are today. Wendy and Don's efforts have resulted in and impacted so much within this case. The children have improved in all areas, but significantly in their education and medical needs that were assessed. The oldest has been in high honor roll all school year and has been previously known to miss more school than not. The youngest increased in all of her scores, and she is now at the developmental level she should be at. But the one that has increased the most and improved more than anyone could have asked is the middle child. When coming into care, this youth had 5 specialists along with his normal physician and dentist, as well as 15 medications to manage. He also was diagnosed with a nonverbal autism diagnosis. Through incredible efforts of these two and teamwork with service provider, the youth is now only on 2 medications and has been discharged or only does yearly checks with specialists. The youth is also now able to verbalize almost everything. The communication between the parents and grandparents have become more and more, even without my help. Although Wendy and Don did not have to, they invited the parents to their home for both Thanksgiving and Christmas, so the children have been able to spend holidays with the entire family. If this doesn't display the amazing efforts that Wendy and Donald have selflessly made, Wendy agreed to do supervised visitation with the children and their parents at the parents' home, although difficult for her. They encourage the parents and let the parents know when a job well done has occurred. The result is the most important in this case. The children are slated to go home back to their parents at the end of 2022. Donald and Wendy are some of the most genuine individuals you will ever meet, and their selfless acts have encouraged 3 children to do their best and know right from wrong. The emphasis for the last time is that I want to acknowledge Wendy for her selfless act. Approximately 3 months into this case, not only was she taking care of the 3 children and all that comes with them, but also Don, as his health had taken a turn. They never asked for respite, although offered, and never missed a visitation, mental health, or doctor's appointment, and never missed a service provider visit. Wendy and Don were emergency certified, but have agreed to continue foster care once reunification is established and support other kids and be able to have them have successful transitions as well. There are so many words and stories to explain just how special they are, but I will simply leave it here and say it's been an honor working with you both. So now, with this big congratulations, I hope to hear what you guys have to say.
Can you hear us?
Yes, yep, we can.
We were told we were a little loud earlier. We still too loud. Anyways, I want to say, Avery, you just brought tears to our eyes. I'm sorry for being so emotional. We want to say thank you. And I also want to say all the credit goes to my wife, because I don't get around as good as I used to. So, and Avery, you have been such a big help to us. I think you deserve an award too. I just don't know what to say. The whole organization has been great.
They supported us.
Yep.
Through everything.
From every angle, we've always had the help that we needed.
Yep.
And Avery and the organization, especially Avery, I'm sorry, she's been great.
Oh, yeah.
And we just want to say thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Very honored.
Thank you, guys. That was wonderful. Thank you so much for your feelings and your emotion, because that's important. It makes us realize how much the help is needed and how much you care for it. And might I put a plug in next year? You too can nominate Avery for a professional award. So if you think she deserves it, you put her name in. I know someone at the top. We'll see what we can do. So, I think Donald and Wendy really talked to the point of how difficult it is to be a kinship caregiver. All the barriers, all the challenges, and it just blows my mind to think that 15 years ago, there was nothing out there for people. 17 years ago, there was nothing out there for people. People didn't even talk about it. It was just expected. You know, you just did it and you just got on with it. And, you know, quit your whining, or why are you asking for help? And now finally, everyone in the community recognizes what an amazing job our kinship caregivers do, how they step up to love children and keep them in safe and stable environments. And as much as foster care is an important option for children that don't have kinship, our kinship kids need to be loved and be with families where they can thrive and stay in those communities. And so I think my favorite part of all the CURA Awards are for our kinship caregivers. And what I'd like to do is, I know that we can't acknowledge every kinship caregiver in New York State, but I want you all to get your hands and do this. It's a round of applause, and we go like this in a circle, and it's a round of applause for all kinship caregivers all over New York State, because our children would be lost without you. And you deserve a huge pat on the back. And I really thank you for stepping up, because you don't have to. You know, I have worked with families. I worked with a kinship family, and they didn't want to take the kinship child because they were embarrassed because their daughter was a drug addict. They didn't want people to know. And there was someone who was not related to that family who ended up taking the children. So there are relatives, there are people who say, I don't want to take on this. It's too much. I want to play golf in Florida. I want to do this instead. I want to do that. And so, you know, a lot of people think, well, of course, why wouldn't you take your grandchildren or your niece or your nephew? There's no legal obligation to in New York State. There's no ethical reason to. It's just something that people, or maybe there is an ethical reason, but it's based on people's values and what they think is important. So I think, you know, all our kinship caregivers who step up, they're making the right choice. They're doing what they need to for their family, and everyone needs to be acknowledged. But I'm not going to take anything away from William and Jacqueline and Donald and Wendy, because they've been shining examples of our kinship caregivers, and I think they've been an inspiration for everyone. And it's important to take this time to celebrate what our kinship caregivers do in New York State. Our next awardee is going to be Carol Cox, and she is an outstanding champion. Carol, however, is also, oh, there she is, there's her slide. She has a PhD and she's a professor in the Graduate School of Social Services at Fordham University down in New York City. As we speak, she is lecturing in a class, and apparently she has been delayed a little bit, but we're going to let Helen Flowers from the Grandparent Resource Center, who nominated Carol, to speak to why Carol was chosen. And then after Helen's done, I will take the floor back again. So Helen, if you are ready to talk about Carol Cox and why you think she deserves the Outstanding Champion Award, please sally forth and tell us why.
Thank you, Deb. Honestly, her work speaks for herself. She is doing exactly what she's doing right now, is what she's been doing for decades. And that's educating kinship caregivers, students, learning about community, and really making impact. I know we have some time, so I just want to kind of read this, and then I'll just put in a few factors. Dr. Carol Cox has been a fierce trailblazer in the kinship caregiver field for almost 4 decades. In 1998, she created a grandparent kinship caregiver program entitled the Empowerment Series that was facilitated at Fordham University. This was done in conjunction to the grandparent empowerment movement of Harlem, which was an interfaith counseling service as well, with initial funding from New York Community Trust. After 3 years, the program became a part of DFTA, and that's where we connected. And she, as a result, she graduated hundreds of brand new caregivers. She, of course, wrote books about empowering grandparents, raising grandchildren, training manuals, and so many accolades and so many periodicals. One of the important things about Carol, that even some of the original members that she had taught with the Empowerment Series became fierce advocates in their communities. Doris Williams, Maggie Lee, and so many others that really took up the mantle and really wanted to make sure that kinship caregivers were recognized in their communities. They went as far as going to Hallmark and different types of entities and organizations to say, hey, there's a National Grandparents Month. We want cards in these stores that represent them. We want flyers and different things in these stores. We want events. They went to politicians and city councilmen to host events in honor of them. So because of her passion, because of her design, because of what she's done in these communities, working with kinship caregivers, she birthed, right, generations of people that we will know forever to really work on behalf of kinship caregivers. One of the exciting things that she did as well in working with our kinship caregivers was with PSS, right, Presbyterian Senior Houses in the Bronx. She had a trip. She received a grant where she was able to go to Tanzania, Africa, and work with grandparents there who were caring for their grandchildren. Those poor countries, of course, that were ravaged with HIV and all types of other types of diseases. She went on a number of occasions, and one particular occasion, she also collaborated with the PSS apartments, and some of those families actually went along with her. That was one of the documentaries I sent to honor her, because the fact is, you know what? Making impact in your city in general, where you are, is one thing. Making impact nationally outside of the scope is another thing. And she's done that for years. She's gone there, she's talked, she's, to those grandparents that, like I said, were in dire need, engaged and fused the grandparents from New York City, and found out that, you know what, although there are some disparities and there's some changes, the realities are grandparents, and they're in need. And the training on how to really support yourself, how to encourage yourself, how to keep yourself in the midst of doing this is amazing. I think everybody was in tears a couple of minutes ago when Donald was talking and Wendy was talking about the support that was received. That support from Dr. Cox to Tanzania, Africa, is something that you can never forget. That has been even memorable for those in the PSS apartments and imprinted in their memories because they've seen something different, but they realize that kinship caregivers need help no matter where they are. In addition to that, Dr. Cox is affiliated with so many various types of, offices, various types of organizations. She has had a footprint. And during the pandemic, for the first time in history of the Empowerment Series, which she created and founded, we were able to go from in-person to virtual. When I tell you that was amazing, it was amazing. We graduated over 175 kinship caregivers to this program, where we were able to encourage them, help them to empower themselves within their communities. Many of them have become advocates in their schools, in their children's schools. They've become advocates on boards. Many of them have become stakeholders in their communities to move the dial and to now have a voice to talk about what their needs are as kinship caregivers. So her footprint, her legacy will live on. And because of her passion, because of her drive, because of her fortitude. You know, we talked about doing something prior to the pandemic, and it just kind of didn't seem to work out for whatever reasons. But it was amazing that because at the time we received a grant from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety, and we were able to purchase tablets for our kinship carers. That was prior to the pandemic. We did not know that this was coming and that we would be turning into a virtual community, but it was orchestrated. And I just believe that things happen for a reason, and when it's perfect, it's perfect. And it was a perfect fit for us to start the empowerment series virtually. If we get ready to start the next season coming up, we definitely would like to share that information. If not, maybe Rae can send a flyer and stuff like that, so you can be aware, because not only were we able to graduate into caregivers from New York City, but we went to Tennessee, we went to Washington, we went to North Carolina, we were able to extend it to Connecticut, and everyone can join virtually. And so the impact of what she created all these years ago is still vital, is still vibrant, is still making a difference in the lives of our kinship caregivers. One of the things that Donald said that struck a chord with me, and I'm telling you, I was like, where's my tissues? Where they at? Was when he said that every step of the way, Avery was there. Every turn that they were not aware of, that they didn't know how to navigate in the system, that Avery was there to provide guidance. And this 7-week series, it started out as more, but as we went on, we condensed it. It helps our kinship caregivers navigate. It helps them understand that they don't have to be perfect. They don't have to know it all. They may not have all the tools, but when you have support, you can make a difference. When you have strength, you can make a difference. And most importantly, Carol Cox speaks to the volume in terms of self-care, right? When you take care of yourself, right? When you become emotional and you become in a space where you just don't know how much more you can take. Learning how to self-care and take time out and register your mind with a thermometer, know your temperature, is amazing. The series and sessions talked about communications with those that they were caring for, the dynamics, right, between this Gen X generation and where we are. Remember, in the remote situation, they were pretty much in a space where they were working on school projects in their home with their kinship caregivers. And they were not aware, they didn't know how to navigate, but this taught them how to communicate and have a discussion. And as we move forward, I don't know if Dr. Cox is on yet, but as we move forward, I had to nominate her as an outstanding kinship champion, because she has proven herself, she has shown herself faithful and committed and continues. She just recently did a course action for kinship care at her school. I think it was, she's going to be doing it this Thursday from 6 to 8. And that's just an added curriculum giving credits about kinship caregivers. So if that's not somebody who's a champion, I don't know who is. So I have the distinct pleasure of nominating Ms. Dr. Carol Cox as kinship champion for 2022. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Helen. And I agree that if we didn't have these awards, I never would have known about Dr. Carol Cox, because, our paths haven't crossed personally. Now that I'm aware of your online course for the grandparent empowerment, I certainly want to get more information on that. We're all very busy in our own little neck of the woods, where we work in our own little communities, and we know who's in our community that we can rely on. And I so appreciate the fact that with these CURA Awards, we get to find out what's happening in other parts of the state, and also people like Dr. Cox and what a champion she has been, and obviously will continue to be for our kinship caregivers and our kinship programming across the state. Now, while we're waiting for Dr. Cox to become available, I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank Rae Glaser for pulling together the CURA Awards. I am just a very poor wingman who's filling in chinking a very few small holes. Rae has been speaking a lot because she knows so much about everyone across the state. Because of the role she plays with our Kinship Navigator, she's personally in touch with all the different programs. I can't really speak to those other programs because, again, I'm involved in my particular community, but I don't necessarily know what's going on in St. Lawrence County or Albany County or Monroe. I get a little bit from belonging to the New York State Kinship Coalition, which I encourage people to join, and I'm learning more about people in that community. But I am so glad that we've got someone like Rae who is gracious and eloquent and able to put her feelings into words so well and to make everyone feel so good about themselves. I don't think she's most probably ever written a bad review on anything in her life. It doesn't seem like it's in her bones. So I just wanted to take that chance to thank her for the effort and making this come together. And I'm hoping next year we'll be able to have a hybrid. So we'll be able to have people around the state who can't travel to Albany to join with us. And those of us that can, we'll be able to get together and see each other in person. I think that's something to look forward to. Rae, did you want to take an opportunity to say a few words while we're waiting for Dr. Cox?
Oh, sure. I don't think we allowed in the agenda for those words to be said about me, but Lady Deb, I really—
We did not.
Thank you very much. It's really been an honor to know so many wonderful individuals across the state, to know so many wonderful professionals, caregivers. As Deb said, I echo her sentiment. Hearing the caregiver stories every single year is absolutely, without a doubt, my favorite part of our celebration. You work in this area for years and years, and you know the input that caregivers are giving, and you know the stories, and you understand the struggle. But sometimes you don't pause in your day-to-day to really think about it. You're moving on to the next thing. And taking the time to celebrate the tireless commitment and the passion that caregivers have for the kids that they're raising. I may have videoed myself a few times as I got choked up, hearing our caregivers accept the awards, hearing the nominees get choked up as they are nominating these very deserving awardees really shows, that not only are we moving forward, not only are we doing work, but it's work that we're very passionate about. It's work that means something to us. And as I heard Helen speak so eloquently about Dr. Cox, I remember looking at all the nominations with the nomination committee to select this year's awardees. And we looked at the nominations for Kinship Champions. And historically, we've always given the award to a state or national official. And Dr. Cox's nomination really stood out because the Kinship Champion Award is really meant for a state or national official or an organization leader. And just seeing the span of work that Dr. Cox has done over the last 4 decades for kinship families, not only in terms of advancing opportunities, her virtual series, but also really boots on the ground work. I mean, we're delayed for her to accept her award because she is currently teaching a course right now. And seeing that commitment to a professional to really be advancing the work in terms of writing, in terms of curriculum, and also in terms of still boots on the ground education for some of the legends of kinship care. Many of us that have been with this work for a decade or more, which really speaks to our passion for the work, are very well versed in the names Doris Williams, Maggie Lee. They've been recipients of our Lifetime Award over the years. And you just look at all these players together, and we couldn't do it without our kinship champions. We couldn't do it without our kinship professionals. We couldn't do it without our kinship caregivers. And I wish that Dr. Cox was able to be here so that she could say some words about this. But this is why we have a recording available. And I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank everybody for attending today. I want to thank everybody for taking the time out of their busy schedule to be with us. As Deb said, next year we are sincerely hoping for a hybrid model and in-person model, because even though this virtual model is far-reaching and we're all able to come and sit and enjoy the Zoom meeting, there's something special to being together in Albany, to sharing lunch, to sharing words, to sharing hugs. That always struck me the moment that I walked into the first kinship meeting as a very young 20-something, fresh out of college, that everybody not only knew their staff and knew what they were talking about, but that everybody was so warm and friendly, and that you really were walking into a family, which is very appropriate for the line of work that we do. But we're all a family together when it comes to kinship care. And I really appreciate absolutely everybody for being part of this, for being part of our KinCare celebration. I encourage you to keep up with your local celebrations that are happening across the state. If you need help, if you're looking for some inspiration, if you're looking for tools that other kinship programs have used, please feel free to reach out, join our coalition. Like I said, our next meeting is October 16th at 1 o'clock. This is what we do. We all come together as a big family to help support each other in the work that we're doing, to help support our caregivers. And really, at the end of the day, that is what we are here for, to support our caregivers, to make sure that they're equipped with the tools to do all of the work that they do, to make sure that there's a sense of support for them as they care for their kinship children. And I have absolutely no other words to say beyond that, but thank you everybody for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Have a wonderful day, and we look forward to continue working with you and the families that you support for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you.